The night feels calm at first. The runway lights stretch forward in quiet symmetry, glowing faintly against the dark. An aircraft begins its roll without drama, engines steady, movements precise and deliberate. There is no rush, no spectacle meant for an audience. The jet lifts off smoothly and vanishes into the sky as if it were never there at all. To an outside observer, it might look like just another routine departure, but what unfolds next is anything but routine. Far beyond visual range, other aircraft are already in motion. Their radars sweep wide arcs through the atmosphere. Their pilots scan instruments, aware that something could happen at any moment. They believe they are entering a contest that will be decided by reflex, maneuvering, and timing. What they do not realize is that the most important decisions have already been made. The battle did not begin when engines started. It began earlier, quietly, in the realm of information. Modern air combat no longer waits for visual contact. It does not begin with a sharp turn or a missile launch. It begins with awareness. It begins with understanding who is present, where they are, what they can do, and what they intend to do. In this environment, victory belongs to the side that sees the entire picture first and acts before the opponent even knows the picture exists. For much of aviation history, air combat was personal. Pilots were taught to master their aircraft, to push it to its limits, and to outfly whoever stood in their way. Success depended on physical skill and instinct. Situational awareness came from eyesight and experience. The sky was a place of motion and reaction, where fractions of a second could decide survival. That world shaped generations of pilots and aircraft. Speed, climb rate, and turn performance defined superiority. Training emphasized aggression and confidence. The image of the fighter pilot as a lone warrior became deeply embedded in popular culture and military thinking alike. But the environment those ideas were built for no longer exists. The modern battle space is crowded with invisible forces. Radar energy fills the air. Electronic signals bounce between platforms. Infrared sensors quietly watch for heat where the human eye sees nothing. Satellites overhead contribute their own streams of data. The sky has become a layered information environment where physical movement is only one part of the equation. In this space, traditional dogfighting skills matter far less than they once did. They are not useless, but they are no longer decisive. A perfectly executed maneuver means little if the aircraft was tracked long before it entered the engagement. Precision and bravery cannot overcome an opponent who understands the battlespace better and earlier. Information has always been central to warfare. History repeatedly shows that armies and commanders who understand their environment gain overwhelming advantages. Terrain selection, logistics planning, and intelligence gathering have decided countless conflicts before the first shot was fired. The same principle now governs the air. The most effective forces shape conditions long before contact. They choose when and where engagements occur. They deny their opponent's clarity while preserving their own. When combat finally happens, it often feels one-sided, not because of superior courage, but because of superior preparation. This is the philosophy behind modern fifth-generation aircraft. They are not designed to win beauty contests or impress observers with dramatic maneuvers. Their true strength lies in what they know and how they use that knowledge. Judging them by appearance misses their purpose entirely. At the heart of this approach is the idea that the aircraft itself must act as a sensor node. It must continuously observe the environment, gathering data from every available source. Radar searches forward, infrared systems scan passively, electronic receivers listen for emissions, and offboard sources contribute additional context. All of this happens simultaneously, without pause. What separates this generation from those that came before is not simply the presence of advanced sensors, but how their outputs are handled. Older aircraft presented information in fragmented ways. Pilots had to interpret multiple displays, correlate data mentally, and make decisions under heavy cognitive load. Errors were inevitable, especially in fast-moving scenarios. The newer approach changes the relate just dots on a screen. They are identified, tracked, and assessed continuously. The system determines which objects matter and which do not. Threats are prioritized based on intent and capability. This allows the pilot to focus on decisions rather than interpretation. This design reflects an acknowledgement of human limits. No matter how skilled a pilot may be, there is a point at which information overload degrades performance. By filtering reality, the aircraft becomes a partner rather than a burden. The pilot is empowered rather than distracted. Stealth plays a critical supporting role in this process. It is often misunderstood as invisibility, but that is not its true value. Stealth alters detection timelines. It delays recognition. It forces opponents to work harder to understand what they are seeing. This delay creates time, and time is the most valuable resource in air combat. With time, an aircraft can observe without being pressured. It can listen instead of transmitting. It can build a detailed picture of the environment while remaining largely unchallenged. While adversary systems struggle to separate noise from signal, the stealth platform is already tracking movements and assessing intent. This asymmetry compounds rapidly. By the time an opposing force realizes something is present, the situation has already evolved. Their understanding lags behind reality. They respond to fragments of information that may already be outdated. Meanwhile, the stealth aircraft operates with a current and coherent picture. Control of time leads directly to control of options. An aircraft that sees first can choose whether to engage, reposition, share information, or withdraw entirely. It dictates the terms of interaction. An aircraft that sees later is forced to react, often under pressure and with incomplete data. This dynamic shapes the entire engagement. The stealth platform decides when to reveal itself, if at all. It chooses when to strike and from what position. It can disengage before the opponent ever understands what happened. Once this control is established, the flow of the fight belongs to one side. Positioning becomes a silent weapon. Instead of charging forward, the aircraft moves deliberately through the battle space. It selects altitudes and angles that exploit weaknesses in enemy coverage. While opponents focus their attention in expected directions, it observes from offset positions that offer safety and clarity. Often, by the time a radar contact appears, it represents a moment that has already passed. The aircraft may have moved, adjusted, or handed off targeting data to another platform entirely. The enemy reacts to a version of reality that no longer exists. This is how modern air combat is shaped, not through sudden violence, but through quiet control. Engagements are decided by geometry, emissions discipline, and patience. The aircraft does not rush toward confrontation. It prepares the environment so that confrontation becomes unnecessary or overwhelmingly one-sided. The familiar idea of seeing first and acting first emerges naturally from this environment. Awareness leads to advantage. Advantage leads to survival. This is not a slogan, but a reflection of how physics and information interact. Sensors track aircraft, missiles, and emitters across wide areas. Radar provides reach, while infrared systems observe without revealing presence. The aircraft builds its picture continuously, often for long periods before an adversary becomes aware. When engagement finally occurs, it feels less like a beginning and more like an ending. The decision has already been made. The action that follows simply confirms it. This awareness compresses the entire engagement process. Detection, identification, and decision flow seamlessly into execution. The pilot is not reacting to surprise. The pilot is carrying out a plan formed well in advance. At this point, the weapon itself is almost incidental. It's dual aircraft. The system was designed to operate as part of a network. Information is shared with other aircraft, ships, and ground forces. What one platform sees becomes available to all. Often, the aircraft that discovers a target is not the one that destroys it. Instead, it passes refined data to another asset better positioned to act. The result is the same, but the path is different. This distribution of roles reflects a fundamental change in how air power is applied. Rather than acting alone, the aircraft functions as a coordinator. It reads the environment, allocates tasks, and enables others to act effectively. It becomes less of a lone fighter and more of a central node in a larger system. This shift demands a change in mindset. Pilots trained for visual combat must learn restraint. Impulsive behavior undermines the system's strengths. Discipline and trust become essential. Old habits can be punished. Chasing contacts too early, transmitting unnecessarily, or acting independently reduces the advantage provided by awareness and stealth. Success requires patience and coordination. This cultural adjustment has been one of the most challenging aspects of adopting this new approach. It is not a question of skill, but of redefining what skill means. Individual heroics give way to collective effectiveness. Once this mindset takes hold, another factor becomes apparent: psychological pressure. Fighting an enemy that cannot be clearly seen or understood changes behavior. Pilots become cautious, decisions slow. Every move carries uncertainty. This hesitation hands initiative to the side with better awareness. One side reacts to doubt, the other acts with confidence. Air dominance has always involved imposing uncertainty on the enemy while preserving clarity for oneself. By controlling detection, the aircraft controls the mental rhythm of the fight. It introduces doubt and forces second-guessing. Over time, this erodes effectiveness before weapons are ever used. This psychological dimension is as important as any technical advantage. Winning the mental contest often decides the physical one. The aircraft is not without challenges. Complexity, cost, and reliance on software introduce vulnerabilities. These issues are real and have shaped public perception. But the system is designed to remain effective even when conditions are not ideal. Rather than failing abruptly, it degrades gracefully. Core capabilities remain intact. The scale of adoption reflects confidence in this resilience. In the end, this aircraft does not seek traumatic engagements. It avoids unnecessary risk. It constructs scenarios where resistance collapses naturally. It represents a shift toward information-driven warfare. By the time the first action occurs, the outcome is rarely in doubt. The fight has already been shaped in silence. This is the reality of modern air combat. The sky is no longer won by aggression alone, but by understanding. As this new approach to air combat takes hold, the role of the pilot begins to evolve in subtle but profound ways. The cockpit is no longer a place where survival depends on constant physical input and split-second reactions alone. Instead, it becomes a decision center. It increases it. Decisions carry greater weight because they influence not just the aircraft itself, but an entire network of connected platforms. Trust becomes a central theme. Trust in the aircraft systems. Trust in the information being presented. Trust that the picture shown reflects reality closely enough to act decisively. This trust is earned through training and experience, but it also represents a leap of faith compared to earlier generations, where pilots relied heavily on what they could see and feel. The aircraft constantly evaluates its surroundings. It measures signal strength, analyzes patterns, and assesses intent. It recognizes when something changes and updates its understanding accordingly. This continuous process allows it to adapt in ways that older platforms simply could not. One of the most important consequences of this adaptability is flexibility. The aircraft is not locked into a single mission profile. It can shift roles as conditions evolve. What begins as an information gathering sortie can quickly transition into an engagement support role or a command function within the network. This flexibility reshapes planning. Missions are no longer rigid scripts that must be followed regardless of circumstances. Instead, they are frameworks designed to accommodate change.
commanders expect the aircraft to interpret conditions and adjust behavior accordingly.
For adversaries, it presents a challenge that cannot be met with simple counters. It requires a fundamental shift in how they approach air power. In the end, the aircraft does not promise invincibility already leaning in one direction, not because of luck, but because of preparation and understanding. This is the future of air combat, quiet, connected, and deliberate, where decisions matter more than maneuvers and awareness matters more than speed. The jet that lifted off quietly into the night was never meant to announce its presence. Its purpose was to see, to know, and to decide. And in modern warfare, that is often enough.